This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be talking to the beautiful and talented Debra Berger. She is the daughter of legendary actor William Berger, who was in, lots of spaghetti westerns. He was in Superfly TNT, Oil, lots of movies. And Deborah, she has been in so many cult classics, particularly in the canon film, arena. She was in four classics from canon from 1986. She was in Dangerously Close, Toby Hooper's Invaders from Mars, Lightning, the White Stallion, and 52 Pickup, a very, very awesome, underrated crime thriller from Elmore Leonard. And it's going to be great to have her on today. I've been looking forward to this. And she did a bunch of films in Europe before then. She was in the horror classic Burn for Hell, celebrating its 50th anniversary. Those canon films are celebrating their 40th anniversary, by the way. And she was in the Inglorious Bastards, the Fred Williamson movie, not the Tarantino movie. And she was in Rosebud, which was one of Otto Preminger's last movies, and Peter O'Toole was in it. And this is going to be a great conversation. I can't wait. She's also into architectural design, and I'll ask more about that. And you should go check out her artwork on her website. Her artwork is just beautiful. I cannot describe it. I've interviewed some pretty talented artists, actors who are into art and stuff. I've interviewed some pretty talented ones, and she's definitely one of them. So yeah, here is my interview with Debra Berger. Hey, Deborah, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Hello, Domi. Very well, thank you. And thank you for inviting me on your show.
Absolutely. This is such a great honor. So, going back in time, I know that your father, William Berger, was an actor. He was in Superfly TNT and Oil and lots of spaghetti westerns. Did he encourage you to go into acting, or was that something you wanted to do?
Oh, absolutely. I was influenced by his love for his art. He was very devoted to acting. It was something that, and he was a very good actor, and he really put his whole self into every part that he played. He was actually a New York actor on the stage for a while. He did a play on Broadway, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, for 2 years, and yeah, and then he got into movies when he went to Italy to do a small part in Von Ryan's Express, like 2 week piece with Frank Sinatra. And then he just stayed for 30 years. He became, his whole career really evolved and developed there, doing spaghetti westerns mostly, and that's what he was very beloved for. Sartana, Sabato,
Yeah.
um, yeah. A very different way of filmmaking there. They would always, uh, remember saying, it's like they always give you the feeling like they're so lucky to have you. Whereas in
Right.
the States, it's more like, well, you're really lucky to have this part, no
Yeah.
matter what level your, the production is.
Yeah.
So in Italy, it's a lot more of like a family feeling. When you travel, when you go in different countries, the Italians really have a sense of family.
Absolutely. So, did you start out doing school plays and community theater and all that?
No, not really. When I was 12, I spent a year living with my father. I'd been growing up in LA, and for a matter of circumstances, I went to live with him. And instead of going to school, I got to travel with him on different movie sets, like in Egypt. We spent a month and a half in Egypt, and I had a small part in one of the films, like 2 films that he was shooting. And then it was when I was 15. I had very much a sense of adventure. I left school when I was 15, and I hitchhiked across North Africa and went to Sicily to pick grapes, and it was a time where one could do, it was, people were trying to find different lifestyles and a sense of adventure that awakened in me. And then after about a year of living like that, I met up with my father in Cannes, where
Hmm.
he had a film, and his agent was there, and she said, are you interested in making movies too? And I was like, sure. And before I knew it, she had set up a meeting with French director Marcel Carnet in Rome. And I went and got headshots, met the director, did an audition. I had to learn French. I got the role. I got the lead female role in basically the first film I went up for, and moved to Brittany for almost a year and
Hmm.
played a French peasant girl who fell in love with an angel. It's a very beautiful and poetic story of H.G. Wells, The Marvelous Visit.
Yeah.
So I moved to Brittany for France for almost a year and really lived the life of this French peasant girl. And my father then was very much by my side. I mean, I had to learn French, and he showed me how, he had like three different women read all my lines in a monotone, and I just like listened to them over and over and over again. So I knew my lines backwards and forwards when we were shooting. And then the film kept stopping and starting again. They had problems with finances and one thing and another, so it ended up, the weather kept changing. Brittany is known for its change of weather. Like, it's raining one day, then the sun comes out 5 minutes later, and they would keep changing, the set. And then Marcel Carnet was, uh, an old school director. So some days we would just get one shot done, which wouldn't, today you shoot so much faster and edits and things. So that was an experience of, another way. I was lucky to experience different ways of filmmaking: small productions, big productions. I did a film with Otto Preminger after that,
Which I'm going to ask
where
you
it was an
about, yes.
all-star. Pardon?
Which I'm going to ask you about, yes.
Okay, so yeah, Rosebud. Wow, that was an experience, because I got the part because, like, I met him. I was with my agent and another friend. We went to see him in the Grand Hotel in Rome and had champagne and orange juice. And then he went to uh, he went to Paris and saw the rushes of the film that I did with Carnet, and I got the part. And there was like, Kim Cattrall. We were five girls that got kidnapped on a yacht. But it was an Otto Preminger film, and we were supposedly like a part of, our parents, our families were very wealthy and very powerful, and these were
Hmm.
Palestinian terrorists who kidnapped us. And so Robert Mitchum was cast to play the lead. He was a CIA agent trying to find us. And after 3 weeks, Preminger fired him
Yep.
and got Peter O'Toole within 24 hours. So
Yep.
uh, that was there were five people that were uh, fired in the 2 months that I was on that film, and one of them being Robert Mitchum, which was, after 3 weeks of shooting.
Yeah, Preminger, he had, a reputation for being like the Hitler of filmmakers. Like, he treated a lot of people badly, but like, in your experience, like, how was he?
Well, when I got on the set, I wasn't ready for this tyrant. I had met him in this charming way, and
Yeah.
the other girls had like auditioned with hundreds of girls, and him behind a big marble table and being very, it was very tough. But the French girl got fired, the costume designer got fired, the assistant director got fired, Robert Mitchell got fired. I've never been on a film where anyone is fired except that one. And it comes out in the film.
Yeah.
You don't really feel it's the story. It's an Otto Preminger film. But he was known as like the last of the Hollywood dinosaurs. So I'm uh, I'm grateful for that experience.
Yeah. I was working with Peter O'Toole and Richard Attenborough.
Oh, charming! Peter O'Toole was so charming. I mean, we
Yeah.
had, first. So it seems there was a story between Robert Mitchum and I think it was with Marilyn Monroe and Otto Preminger, that there was a years ago. there was a problem between them, and they said to, Preminger wanted to fire him, and they said, we're sorry, but if one of the two of you to go, it's not Mitchum. And then they went to Robert Mitchum and said, well, who do you want to direct this film? And he said, Otto Preminger. So it's very surprising that, so many years later that he would, do this to him. But Peter O'Toole, the first thing he did, because it was a day that we were shooting in a rural part, and the French farmer was so proud to have Robert Mitchum and his, and Preminger wasn't even there. He had left it to his assistant director to shoot this scene, and they were giving him aquavit, and it's like the strongest alcohol, and it was a friendly way. So he was quite drunk that day, and then they wanted to use the rushes against him, and that's when they brought in Peter O'Toole. And the first thing he did was have a refrigerator sent up to his suite with vodka.
Yeah, that's him.
He came with his double. Yeah, he brought his entourage too.
Yeah,
he knew what he was getting into with Preminger.
The other young girl in that movie is Kim Cattrall. Before anybody knew who she was, did you two become buddies?
Yes, we were there for like 4 weeks before the shooting, and he terrorized her. It was like her second film.
Yeah.
And I remember he just, and it wasn't productive for the film. He would like scream at you when you had a very lighthearted scene, and he'd be like so kind when you were supposed to cry.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was. And these big cameras and sound stages, everybody has to be silent, and if any noise is made, it was just a whole other atmosphere.
Absolutely. Did you guest star on Hawaii Five-0?
No.
Okay, that's a different Debra Berger. Sometimes they get it mixed up on IMDb, so I'll skip that. You were in the horror classic Born for Hell, a very frightening movie. Any memories of making that movie?
Yes, that was Denis Heroux with Mathieu Cartier, and we were in like Hamburg, and that was with that was also a very easy, fast-paced film, and it was based on a true story, right, of Richard Speck, who killed these 8 nurses.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. God, he was bad.
Yes. Well, I mean, it was, what could I say? I don't have any real specific moments that come to mind.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it, and I was like, wow, she was a baby. She was young when she made this movie, and like, there was just some really dark and just disturbing stuff in that movie. I mean, I don't know, even if it is based on a true crime situation, I don't think you could make it like that today,
Well, yeah, things have changed a lot today in just what is politically correct, and then also, there's these possibilities of making films with so little today. I mean, that has nothing to do with your question about that, but just in many ways, it's a different medium today. I think there was a phrase of Jean Cocteau that film will become art when it's as inexpensive as a pencil and paper. And today, anyone can make a movie on their iPhone, or and yet we're doing these bizarre things about our cats and what we had for breakfast. And yet we have this platform that people could make, movies and learn while you're working. My life has been a lot about that, of just in everything, in filmmaking and in art and architecture, which is what I'm very focused on now. You can learn as you go. It's the actual making of a film. I had a friend who's a film, Louis Teagues, who was did Romancing the Stone,
Cat's Eye.
I mean, he was teaching. Pardon?
Cat's Eye, Jewel Denial, Alligator. I know his movies.
Yes, okay, so he taught a class at UCLA, which is just like take your phone and start shooting. You know,
Yeah,
that's the way I think with everything, with writing, with art. It's like get out of your head, get out of your judgment, get out of your fear, and experiment. You know, see what
yeah,
comes to you, what you learn about what works and what doesn't, and try and have a mentor. You know, offer yourself as an intern, as a as a PA. Most of the people I know that were very successful in film started as a PA, which is
right.
a very difficult job. You're just asked to do everything, but you learn about everything, sound and production and how to be with actors and, how to have a work ethic. And, it's not a, I think, who was it? Sam Green, I think, that produced, he said, don't make a film unless it's a question of homicide or suicide. It has to be a matter of life or death. Otherwise, it's just not worth it, what you have to go through.
Right, right.
So, on one level, I'm saying, experiment and learn as you go. And there's no better school than actually being on a set or taking a camera and seeing what you can do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, it's really important to be passionate about it.
I
And the
agree.
truth is, I was never really that passionate about filmmaking as I am today about art and architecture.
Yeah,
Although I used some of my skills acting in the beginning to like just present my projects and say, this is, yes, of course I could do that. Of course I have a crew, and because I
yeah,
knew if I got the job, I would be able to do those things. That's the other thing in like the filmmaking in the 70s in Rome and Cinecittà. People would, go and say, yes, of course I can ride a horse and I can speak this language and I can do this, and then learn very quickly if you get the part.
yeah. I tell you, when I started this podcast, it was horror focused, and I'll tell you, yeah, because I love horror, and like, I don't care if an actor doesn't like the horror genre, but I do care if a filmmaker doesn't like the horror genre because it shows in the final product. It's like they're taking it for a paycheck or they're taking it for relevancy, and it shows. I get offended when people make movies for obvious reasons of not being a fan of the genre.
But that's true in everything. I remember my son when he was a little boy, he said something. He said, Mom, whenever people do things that you can't figure out why, that doesn't make sense, it always has to do with money.
Yeah,
And I think in everything, no matter how much, I mean, of course, you have to make your deals and your contracts, but then once that's done, you just throw yourself into it with everything you can to do the best that you can. That judgment of oneself or of the project or of others, it just does not belong in the creative process.
right. I mean, back in the day, there were filmmakers who actually fooled the audience into thinking that they were fans of the genre because they pulled off a pretty good movie. But I also think that's also teamwork. I think all movies are teamwork. It's not just the director; it's everybody involved in the production.
Well, again, that's so true in so many things. I mean, in the art world, certainly in building something. I mean, it's that feeling that you're putting into what you're doing and how you're collaborating with other people that comes out in the product, in what you
Yeah,
produce. It's loving the process too.
absolutely.
I uh, I had an acting coach in a workshop. There were some really good actors, and he said, "But look, the ones that are really stunning love the process. They don't go in with the idea, I'm going to do this, this, and that, and I'm going to make this. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, let's discover. Just they're real in that moment, and anything can happen. That's why. That's why animals, actors don't want to act with children and with animals because the attention goes all on the presence of the animal. You don't know what it's going to do next, right?
right.
Whereas often with films and actors, you pretty much know what they're going to do. But
How was making the Inglorious Bastards? Not the Tarantino movie, of course, but the Fred Williamson movie.
right, That was a lot of that was great. I love that. I mean, it was Enzo Castellari and what Fred Williamson and Bo Svensson,
Yeah,
and I got to play Nicole, who was a French partisan nurse. And again, it was just like this process of being fluid, and I enjoyed playing her, and it was it was there was no drama behind the set. That's
yeah,
also so important, that the drama is only on camera and not behind the camera. I think that really deters, you know, the product. So, and also it was very close to where I was living in Caprarola. Most of it was shot in this beautiful place of a Renaissance. Uh, it was the residence of like 16 popes, and
yeah.
but so part of it, Caprarola, the town, was uh, was just very close to me. So it was all very, very fluid. I liked the
Yeah.
actors. I liked the director. It was all very stimulating, and a good experience all
I
around.
I met Fred Williamson 10 years ago,
I actually,
and he is a
yeah,
force of nature. I will tell you, he's a funny guy.
yeah, yeah. I actually got that part first. The producer, I think he had his girlfriend or something, and it was terrible. It didn't work out
Mhm.
at all. And then Enzo called me because he had done Keoma with my father, and it was a great fondness. I mean, everyone who worked with my father that I worked with or had any, right down to the costume designer, to the they would always just speak so fondly of him, because
Mhm.
again, he loved working, he loved movies, he loved the whole process, and he was very good and very devoted. So
Yeah.
um, that also, people appreciate that. You arrive on time, you know your lines, you hit your mark, you give it your soul, you put into every role, and people respond to that. I think in other crafts as well.
Yeah. When I met Fred, I met him at this horror convention in LA called Monster Palooza, and he had this picture of him with the MASH cast, and he told me to name every person in that picture, and I did, and he was impressed by it. And I said to him, "Are you going to give me that autograph for free?" And he said, "No."
Ah, he didn't give you an autograph.
No, and I didn't buy
What did
one.
you pay for it?
By that point, I had spent so much money at that convention that day. I just like went over and just talked to him for a few minutes. That's all I needed. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. I think, wasn't he in Superfly, the film that I think he was in the film that my father was in, and
Maybe
they were doing like an interview, and he was like,
maybe he did several black
and he
exploitation movies. He did Black Caesar, and stuff like that. He may have been in Superfly TNT. Would have to look that up though.
because I remember him saying like they were asking him of something about the part. He said, "Well, they were looking for a very good-looking black man,
Yeah,
so they took me."
that's his line, by the
He
way.
was not humble.
Yeah, he says that
Yeah,
all the time. Yeah, they're always looking for tall, dark, and handsome, and that's me.
right.
That's him.
Well,
Yep. Oh, he's a funny guy. Um, yeah, so you do all these European productions, and then the Canon films come into your life. And it's funny, I love Canon films. I grew up on them, and I've interviewed this guy, Austin Trunick. He has written 3 books about Canon films. I mean, he has really researched the history of Canon, like top to bottom, and is a true historian about Canon and stuff. And I interviewed an actress about a month ago named Caroline Langford. She was an Israeli Australian actress who got to be in 3 Canon films like the same time you did. And that was because she was in Israel where they were filming these particular ones. But how did you come to be in Canon films?
wow. Let me think. I think. Well, my brother-in-law did Dangerously. I'm Dangerous Tonight. He had done also Poltergeist, the first one.
Uh huh.
and he did several films with them. Canon, they really worked fast. It was like you were there, you could do it. There was no, there wasn't a long audition process, or, you know, they they made a lot of movies.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's what I remember more than anything. It's like once you work well with one director or with one production company or something, you get taken for. They ask you to come back on the next one, and if either there's a role you can play, um, yeah. And I was just in Rome. They were making so many movies at that time.
Right.
Um, Again, it just wasn't that really competitive edge that's in the States, like certainly in Hollywood. When I always felt there were other girls as qualified, as good, even better. So
Yeah.
like the film. I mean, Menachem Golan, he was like, he would never spend any money on anything that wasn't on the screen, giving production value, giving a name, they were, uh, I think they made films so inexpensively too, some of them.
Yeah.
Then they got into a much higher, production value. I guess they did both.
Yeah, and in Dangerously Close, you played the pissed off typing teacher, and John Stockwell is like giving a presentation in front of the class, and I just love that scene. It's pretty funny, and Albert Pune directed. He was a genius, I think.
Ah, yes, yes. Okay, yes, that was also a very good, experience, and they were writing it as we were going along, and
Yeah,
uh, yeah, John Stockwell had an interesting career after that, and the director, I think that was his first film,
one of the first. He did
one
Radioactive
of them.
Dreams before that. Yeah. And the Sword and the Sorceress. I think that was his first movie, but yeah, the guy made lots of movies until he couldn't do it anymore, and he passed away a few years ago. And there's a documentary out about him now, and I haven't seen it yet, but I want to see it because I interviewed the director years ago about another documentary. I do love Tobe Hooper's remake of Invaders from Mars. I think it's just as good as the original. It stays faithful to the original in many ways, but also improving on it as well. Was that fun to do?
Absolutely, absolutely, and Bud Cort was in that, and
Yep.
the
James
the
Karen.
monsters.
Yeah, James Karen.
Oh, he was so lovely. He was great. I
Yeah,
adored him. Yeah.
yeah.
And again, my sister did the costumes, and
Mhm.
uh, they worked well together.
I interviewed the kid from the original. He plays the mustache cop in the remake, Jimmy Hunt. I got to talk to him shortly before he passed. It was pretty haunting, the things that he was saying near the end of that interview. I think he knew he was going to die pretty soon, and he was just so poetic and just articulate and just a wonderful guy. Do you remember if you got to meet him on set?
Was that Karen Black's son?
No, no, no. Jimmy Hunt was the kid in the original movie, and he plays the
Invaders from Mars.
yes, the
Oh yeah, no,
original.
in the original, no, I didn't meet him. No.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah, he's the cop with the mustache in the remake.
oh, that's right. Yes. Okay. Toby Hooper. So he was my brother-in-law.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, he married my sister. Um, and I don't remember if they met working, but she did all the costumes for his films while they were married. Toby was, he's passed away now. He definitely had a stroke of genius with Poltergeist. I mean, that was
Yeah,
an amazing film. We're here.
yeah.
And that tree. No, he was great. Um, I don't know. I think when he was working with Canon, he didn't have the same.
Vision.
Spielberg definitely had a hand in it, and
I have to correct
and
you.
Toby, some
I have to correct
yes.
you. Poltergeist was an MGM movie.
But Spielberg was was one of the
Yes,
producers.
you are right. You are right about that. But it's not a canon film, is what I was saying.
No, no, we weren't talking about. Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know we were talking about Conan.
It's
That's
okay.
right.
It's okay.
Yeah, no, I was saying that when he did Poltergeist, he had a stroke of genius, but he also had Spielberg by his side. I
Right.
mean, Menachem Golan and who on Canon did not have that same collaboration with him. You
Right.
know, so I think he was a little bit left on his own to do things, and he was a very talented director. He did several things. He also did Chainsaw Massacre. Oh my God, you like horror?
Yep. I
One,
love
two, and three.
I love Eaten
Yeah.
Alive. That's a favorite of mine. Eaten Alive. That was based on a guy who actually used to feed women to alligators.
Oh my God, Toby did that.
Yep, that was in '77.
I didn't see that.
He did a movie called The Fun House. That's another horror one I like. Yeah, A Spontaneous Combustion. That's a very oddly unique movie Toby did. Yeah, he did some good ones.
Uh huh.
But I have a couple more movie stuff I wanted to ask you about. Lightning the White
Sure.
Stallion. Anything stand out about that?
Oh, with Mickey Rooney. He was great to work with. He was so funny and so entertaining to everyone, playing
Yeah,
his concubine. That too was shot so fast,
yeah,
and Canon got some pretty good people. It was great honor to work with Mickey Rooney. Very fond memories of that. Uh, it was also done so fast there wasn't a lot of time to prepare for this character. Um, so you bring what you can to it. I remember Leslie Ann Warren had just played like this floozy. I
yeah,
don't remember in what film, but she was so good. So like they say, there are no, you can do so much with a part if you're insightful and passionate, and um, I was just grateful to have to know Mickey Rooney and be by his side and watch him act and play off of that, because also so much of acting is reacting to what is
yeah.
actually happening.
Well, it's funny. I interviewed Murray Langston, who was in the movie. You know, he was the unknown comic back in the day, the guy with the bag over his head. And he told me Mickey Rooney was awful to him on this movie. And then 3 years later, he ran into him somewhere, and Mickey was like, "Hey, Murray!" And he turns around, and it's Mickey Rooney, and he's like giving him a hug, and he's like, "Mickey, I thought you hated me." Yeah, it's
No, he was great with everybody. He
yeah,
was joking around all the time, and
yeah.
yeah, really no star status, no bullshit about, no airs, nothing. He was, and he had some of the most beautiful women in Hollywood, right?
Oh,
That he
absolutely.
married.
Yeah, Ava Gardner, I think, was one. God, lots of women. Yeah, he had like 7 wives, I believe.
But he was this little funny looking man. I mean, cute,
Yeah,
but but there was something very endearing about him and very captivating, very charming.
very much so. And I'm a huge fan of 52 Pickup. I think John Frankenheimer was a genius. And I love Elmore Leonard stories. Just the way he could construct a quirky ensemble crime film was just amazing. Like, any good stories about that set?
Well, yeah, Roy Scheider was great. I mean, we, and he too, just these actors that are so bigger than life, and yet you're with them, and we were at a table with extras, and he was just so kind to everybody and so interested. I remember this one woman was a poet, and she would come up with these poems, and she was playing an extra.
Right.
So there are. I really admire that in people when they're on a certain level, and that has nothing to do with the way they relate uh, to other people. Just kind and considerate and present, in yeah. I remember that very clearly at one of the dinner scenes.
Yeah. Clarence Williams III, he's terrifying in this movie. Oh my God. Just the way he turns on a dime like in the last, 45 minutes of the movie is scary. And just Roy Scheider is just so badass in this movie.
So yeah, Roy Scheider, 2001. I mean, he's done some of the most important films ever, right? With
Yeah.
Stanley Kubrick
Jaws, The French
and then you're
Connection.
with him on the. Oh my God!
Yeah.
Right. Uh,
Marathon Man.
right. Yeah. Oh my God! And you had none of that. None of that is like standing in the way of his humanity. It was uh, just, just like one of us.
Right, right. Did you get to meet
I
Anne?
respect that.
Did you get to meet Anne Margaret?
No,
No.
no.
So why did you leave
Be-
acting for architectural design?
Well, like I said, I sort of fell into it like because of the time that I was in Rome, because of my father. I mean, it was something I enjoyed doing, enjoyed kind of the depth of the traveling into different, personage people that you play. It gives you really the opportunity to look deeply into how your life would be if you had these other circumstances. But I didn't really like the whole competitive side of filmmaking that I because when I went to the States I thought, well, I'll continue acting and it's very disheartening to be constantly judged and to constantly, the whole way was I did a couple of AFI films which were great
Mm-hmm.
because there's that kind of freedom and spontaneity and that kind of connection with people. Um, but then when I found I've always loved to build things. I've always loved to create atmospheres and create different worlds in film. You make something that sets destroyed the next day or the same day. Uh, and while you're in the filmmaking, or if you're so passionate about it as you are, it seems like the most important thing in the world. But when you get out of it, it's sort of like, okay, I love building things that people are actually going to live in, that they're going to visit, that they're going to fall in love with, that they're going to talk about philosophy. You create a situation in an environment when you build something, and then taking these places. I found myself in Spain. Um, and this town was just so beautiful, and it's so much in ruin,
Mm-hmm.
and it just like called to me. It's a kind of an intuition or kind of time in my life where I just listen to that. I mean, I try always to. Um, it's so important to not make all your decisions out of logic, right? You're passionate about something, and it takes you in different places. And
Yeah.
I found this town. I thought I would love to live here with no plan of how or why I would. And then I was in the right place at the right time because this town in southern Spain, in Andalusia, with the old Moorish architecture and views of the most incredible beaches and oceans on the Atlantic, just where the Mediterranean meet, and you can see Africa and it just called out to me, and I just wanted to stay there. And I learned about building. I'd built some things before, but always like with a partner.
Yeah.
I'd restored. Yeah, I'd fallen in love with projects like that before, but where there was a man in my life, I had a partner. There was a contractor, there was an architect, and here I was completely on my own, and I could just learn with the people who actually had the hands-on building experience, who would be doing the roof, who would be doing the plumbing, who would be doing the building, the walls, the wood, the stone, the old tiles. It just spoke to me, and I actually got pretty good at it. And I have several places that I've brought to life over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I found my niche. I've sort of carved a niche in this world of something that I love to do. I had no plan. I had no it wasn't about the outcome. It was like, oh, I want to make a name for myself, or I want to, and then what was it, in like 2006, the New York Times did a story. I had like 5 pictures in home and garden, but there was no ambition or idea of a career that I was following, and I think that comes through in my work. I
Hmm.
just, again, I fall in love with these places and they speak to me, and I find the right people sort of come into my projects, and it's really important to me the atmosphere and the way we work together. I think that in life is extremely important.
Absolutely. And what got you into ceramics and art? I saw your website. Your images are beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yes, well, those I since I was in high school, I only went to school for a very short period of time. I
Yeah.
left when I was 15. So this was the first, but one teacher that I really connected with, or one medium, Mr. Riddle. I remember it. And I just loved ceramics, and it's kind of been interwoven throughout my life, because it's not really something you can do unless you're in like one place. Ceramics, I mean, you have to fire it until you fire it. It's not really solid. But I love also taking, after the earthquake in LA in the early 90s, a lot of my ceramics came crashing down, and I used all those pieces to make fireplaces, and so it's sort of like finding beauty in a broken world. You take the pieces of what's there. Also in the ruins that I work in Spain, it's like there's some part that somebody built with a really in tune or in that flow, and you connect with that part, and then I bring in ceramics to that. I can bring in broken pieces or make pieces for lamps or for
Hmm.
tiles or for mosaics. I've done a lot of mosaics also in like a hotel in Punta Sur, in near Tarifa. I did the fireplaces, I did the floors, I did like 50 rooms. I worked on the lounge and the bar and the restaurant, and I just immersed myself. That was the first really kind of big job I did,
Yeah.
and that's
Hmm.
where my acting skills came in very handy when I started this career. And I didn't even think of it as a career. I just, I just wanted. Somehow felt this was a really important stage in my life, was to develop this passion that I have.
That's so awesome. Do you have any like galleries or exhibits for your work?
Well, right now I'm in a place called Bombay Beach on the Salton Sea, and I come every year for a few weeks or a month to create something. It's this incredibly creative place. It's a kind of in a kind of post-apocalyptic way. This town on the Salton Sea, which is evaporating, and it's like a disaster ready to happen because of all of the water that's evaporating. But something is emerging in the art world, just between people, that it's extraordinary, because it's like attracted an incredibly eclectic kind of people. There's architects and philosophers, and there's people in the town, and there's poor people, and there's wealthy people. It's a town of like 200 or 300 people,
Right.
and yet there's a creativity that is just unbelievable. And again, philosophy conferences, and it's kind of reviving. This town is having a revival, um, just
Resurgence.
because there's this freedom to create. Pardon?
It's a resurgence.
Yes, but in an extraordinary way, because it's not there's nobody here trying to speculate. There's nothing transactional between the people. There's no prizes given. There's no competition. I really believe that's way overrated,
Hmm.
and it's all about collaboration. And here I'm doing a big sculpture of like these wings and I'm sort of sculpting the garden around them, and they're about uh 5 feet tall, and they're suspended in the air, and I'm using all different kinds of like mirrors and aluminium and sidings of the house and vents, and they've come out this regal kind of wings, and I've named it the Wings of Desire and Divine Discontent. This is the project I'm working on right now. I've done other things that around the town. Again, there's this freedom to, you make something and you offer to put it in someone's yard or on the corner,
Yeah.
and everyone is there to support you. Like, there's a lot of construction involved in this. There's a little bit of welding, and there was some, I carved out the feathers in wood and then wrapped them in some kind of uh, aluminium or stainless steel. But people are there to collaborate. There's
Right.
meals. It's fun to be alive, and it's fun to create things, and it's fun to be a part of other people's projects. And when you get out of that sense of like being in that rat race of having to make a lot of money and having to see how people are going to further your career, and it just affects every bit of your life and of your being. So I love that here. Yeah. So that's what I'm working on now. And then I just did a piece of a property in Spain, which was probably one of the biggest ruins because the whole ceiling, the whole roofing was caving in,
Hmm.
and the floor was uneven. There was no water or electricity. There were no windows, and it's like when you're in that flow state, it all just went so smoothly. And I have trompe l'oeils. A wonderful painter came and painted, and I uncovered these stones around the windows and around the doorways, and I found old doors and restored them, and found a what is it, reclaimed teak floor,
Yeah.
and skylights, and so we have the view of the church, and these birds flying, and the palm trees, and I can see the ocean if I climb up on the roof. And I think, yeah, it just, the place speaks to me, and I respond with everything. When I get into a project, I'm 150% into it. There's like I make models to scale, and really think about everything that I possibly can plan for, but also stay open for that magic that, if you stick too much to a plan, you have to. I do the planning so that I can be free to see the sort of gifts that appear, unexpected things.
That's so awesome. And lastly, yesterday was your birthday.
Yes. Oh my God, I had such a beautiful birthday and
Yeah.
totally spontaneous. Uh, somebody made a beautiful dinner. There was this art opening of this new gallery space, which is incredible. Henderson's something in, and again, this town is only like from A to it's only like 7 blocks by 7 or something, and
Right.
so that was so lovely. I had dinner with my son and his fiance and another dear friend that I'm working on a project. We're creating this nest. I live in this house that's been restored from a trailer, and there's this huge egg on top, somewhat of
Yeah.
a homage to Salvador Dali and surrealism. And I'm creating this nest with woven textiles that are otherworldly. And the person I'm working with, Erica Spooner, is created this lovely spontaneous dinner because I just didn't plan anything. And I started with yoga out of Mars University, which is a whole other scene, which is about a half a mile from here. We do yoga
Yeah.
on the rooftop Monday through Thursday, and there it's just a completely different scene, but also kind of people looking for alternative lifestyles and how to create and survive together outside of what's fed to you. You
Yeah.
you have to go to school, you have to have a career, you have to pay your rent, you have to pay your insurances, you have to be afraid of your neighbor and compete with the other. It's just not like that here.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I bring up your birthday is because my dad was born March 4th, the same year you were.
Oh, all right.
Well, Deborah, thank you so much for coming on today, and you are truly amazing for your passion for the art, and I'm so glad you're doing what you love.
Oh, thank you so much. And I wish that for everyone that they can find, and to follow that passion. I appreciate how much you love movies. It can be in so many different things. It's something that's so apparent here is that we are so different. Someone is making things with like old cars or a old bomber plane, and somebody else is making things with butterflies and origami, and somebody else is using like old plumbing pieces and creating these sculptures. And it's like we're so different, and yet there's this
Hmm.
harmony. And this, when we find the things you love to do, it's just life doesn't get any better than that. But it's been lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This has been a great pleasure, and a nice blast from the past.
Splat from the
I've
past.
enjoyed sharing that with you.
Thank you.
A splat from the past. Yes. Well done. Thank you, Tommy. Bye
My
bye.
my pleasure. Bye bye. Well, there you have it. Deborah Berger. Interesting lady, huh? Very interesting lady. That's all I have to say about that. And it was good at least to get some minutia. I did not know that Toby Hooper was her brother-in-law. That was news to me. It's one of those things you don't find out on IMDb, but it was great finding that out, and I enjoyed it. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.